distance in the light, vibration of a thundercloud.
Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and this is the My Sober Addiction podcast. And we are happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. And loved ones, I've been reflecting back on, just some of the things that I've said. For example, recently I did that podcast, Breaking My Addictions, with Clive, my new friend. And actually, he is going to help me get set up with the My Sober Addiction website. And I had a hang up with it. Let's put it that way. That's the reason why I haven't had one. I did have a little hang up with the domain and all that. However, Clive, being the exceptionally smart guy that he is, has helped me figure that out. So it's coming. So there's that. But I was reflecting back on that talk that I had with him. And he had brought up that I have said in the past how I love addicts. And I do. I do. And, maybe I'm just biased. Okay, fine, whatever. But I thought back on it. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, you're biased, but maybe you should have something better to say than just that. Well, it's like, I guess I'm biased or I love addicts because personally, I know full well the struggle. I know what someone in addiction has gone through. And it doesn't have to be opioid addiction. I mean, addiction is addiction. It's a mental disorder. It's a mental disease. And I know also that there are those people out there who get triggered when we say that. When they say things like, no, it's not a disease. It's something that you did to yourself by your own behavior, your own actions. And I'm like, you're right. That's true. But as I've also said before, in a lot of cases, diabetes is brought on by our own behavior, but yet it is also a disease. We just got to be a little bit more kind with one another. It's like, hey, all right, yes, I, addict, screwed up. I did. However, I'm owning that now, but I'm also realizing I have a more deep-seated problem than just the fact that I started using drugs. Because as Clive and I talked about, it's in a lot of cases, somebody is covering up something that happened in their childhood, maybe some kind of trauma. Now, of course, I can't claim that. I've always had a very supportive family. Yes, they did have to let me hit rock bottom. They did have to show me some tough love. And I am so grateful that they did that. But whenever it was time to bring me back in, when it was like, oh, he's ready to do it, they also supported me in that. So I can't claim that. Although I am very sympathetic to people who have. And I have been around a lot of addicts over the years. And I understand where a lot of them have come from. So I got to say, when I say I love addicts, it's just because I understand what they've had to deal with. I understand that in a lot of cases, we were addicts before we ever touched a single drug. Maybe it's just because our brains were wired that way. And it only took us finding something to latch onto. And it could have been gambling. It could have been opioids. It could have been alcohol. It could have been a lot of things. Whatever you latched onto is what you latched onto. I just think that addicts, we're just a little bit different of a breed. And I don't mean that we are better. I just mean that we are different. We have our own set of issues that we have to deal with. Some people have physical handicaps. Some people have mental handicaps. Ours is mental, yes, but it's more of our brains kind of take over. And then I think about, well, how is that? Because another thing, and maybe this is just my bias, sorry, but I feel like I'm in safe company here. I can say these things because if you're listening to this, you are most likely an addict or a loved one of one. Most of the smartest people I've ever known were addicts. Not all of them. I mean, I've got a lot of really smart people I've known over the years. But then again, some of them just didn't go down the road of addiction. Maybe they never fell into that trap. But I digress. That doesn't really matter. My point is, most addicts are very intelligent. They have a very overactive mind. That's why they either need to dumb it down with drugs or occupy it with something else. And this kind of goes back to, I've often said that if somebody is running a business and they need some really good workers, they need some people who are really just going to go hard at work, I would look into hiring addicts who are in recovery with the understanding that there may be some accountability that might seem unfair. You see, I would hire a bunch of addicts to work for me, but with the understanding that, hey, I know your background, and so I probably need you to agree to random drug tests or things like that. But then again, it's not that hard to tell when an addict has fallen off the wagon. Because usually when they're on the wagon, when they are in recovery, they're usually going just as hard at something else besides the negative things that they were going after when they were in addiction. Meaning, when you take someone who is on opioids and they will go hard, man, they'll go hard. They'll do the shit out of some drugs, right? And then they get sober. And they will be just as passionate about their sobriety, be just as passionate about recovery as they were about addiction. Then maybe you put them in a hobby or in a job or whatever. They're going to go just as hard onto that as they did drugs. And there's no chemical dependency, but then again, there may be. I guess there is always that dopamine. But my point is, if I had a business and I were hiring people, yeah, I would be open to hiring addicts because I know that they are going to be super dedicated and work their asses off. Yes, they are going to work ridiculously hard. They are going to be very dedicated. They are going to be very efficient. They are going to find better ways to do things. But I also know the flip side of that coin is if they fall off the wagon, they're probably going to be the worst employees. So there's that. But yes, it is true that some of the smartest people I've ever known were addicts. They just have a very active mind. And it's hard to keep that active mind occupied. So they either get dependent on learning, working, or chasing drugs. Because there is always that dopamine too. When you get to that thing, it's like, yeah, here we are. This is it. Like I was saying before about gambling addiction. At first, I was like, I don't really get it. It's not my thing. Then I thought about it again. It was like, I do get it. I totally get gambling addiction. Because it's not about, it's about finding that one thing, right? It's about finding that bet. I mean, I'm kind of struggling with it a little bit. Just understand, I get it. I understand why that could be an addictive thing. But as I said, it's not my thing, thankfully, because, yeah. But another thing about addicts is that while they are very smart and very hardworking and all of that when they're sober, yes, please understand when they are sober. But most addicts do feel very out of place. And that, I believe, dear loved one, is where community comes in. Because most addicts feel so out of place, it's just like we don't fit in anywhere. Maybe it's our overactive minds. We overanalyze and we find every reason in the world to not want to participate in something. But then again, when we do find something to participate in, we go 1,000 miles an hour, right? We don't know moderation. It's either 1,000 miles an hour or 0 miles an hour. And that is something that we have to get conscious and aware of so that we can tone it down. Become aware of these things. Become aware of, I'm going 1,000 miles an hour now. I got to tone it down. And we can do that. But it just takes awareness. We have to get aware. And it's like in my last episode, I recommended the awareness alarms. I've recommended awareness alarms many, many times on the podcast. And I believe, yes, and even on the YouTube channel, probably in blogs. I don't know. I've always recommended awareness alarms. What are awareness alarms, Matt? I must have missed that episode. Well, let me refresh. Take your phone and every hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever you think, I recommend probably 2. Every hour your alarm, or every 2 hours, whatever you decide, your alarm goes off. It's an awareness alarm. What that tells you is, oh, it is time for me to center my attention. Take a few deep breaths, bring it in, center your awareness in the now, and get aware of something. Get aware of your hands. Look at your hands. How often do you look at your hands and think, wow, I am right here, right now? That might sound a little silly to you, but when you are hyper aware and in the moment, that's not silly at all. In fact, you may find yourself looking at your hands thinking, wow, they really are there. Yeah. Anyway, the awareness alarms, that's when you can center your consciousness, center your awareness, bring it into the now, and take stock in, am I allowing my mind to go on autopilot? Am I allowing my mind to just run my day for me? Or am I running my day? I mean, I realize that most of the time, most things are muscle memory. Most people drive to work and they don't even think about the drive. Most people drive to work and they couldn't tell you what they thought about the entire time. I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. Let's say you drive to work and as you're pulling in the parking lot, the awareness alarm goes off. At which point you bring your attention to now. You bring your attention to self. And you realize, shit, I don't even remember driving to work, really. I know I did. I mean, I'm here. And then you may think, oh, yeah, my favorite song came on the radio. That's right, yeah, or something. But really, we don't get aware. And that's dangerous. That's when that autopilot can kick in. Now, for somebody who has addictive tendencies, well, autopilot can be a dangerous thing. And I'm not saying we can switch off the autopilot all the time. Of course we can't. But when we have those awareness alarms, we can keep it in check. When that alarm goes off, we can think back, oh, wow, yeah, my mind was kind of wandering over to where it doesn't need to go. My mind was kind of wandering to thinking about buying drugs. I mean, I don't know, now maybe not that, but you get where I'm going with this. So I always recommend that. But it's so important that we find something to do that is constructive, something to do to direct our attention. I have recommended it many times, and I've had a lot of people, a lot of other addicts talk to me and tell me the things that they have done. I've had people talk to me and say that they've taken up like woodworking and things like that. And they're, I mean, if you ask me, they're full-blown artists now because they just are. It's like, wow, that is freaking beautiful. It's like, wow, really? You think? I mean, yes. And okay, have they redirected that addictive trait towards woodworking in that case? Yeah, probably. Or another good one was like making jewelry. That was another good one. It's just the focused attention on something that is constructive. It's like if you take that same focus that you had towards chasing drugs and getting drugs and all of that and direct it towards something good, There is no limit to what an addict can do. And then somebody might say, well, Matt, that's not just true for addicts. That's true for other people. I know that. I already said my bias may be showing. But I also know that some of those people that are not quote unquote addicts, maybe they never fell into addiction. Maybe they dodged that bullet, but maybe they still have those traits. Oh, there's something. That's kind of poking the bear a little bit right there. But when addicts are redirected, they will be the best at whatever they're interested in doing. Yes, my bias is fully showing right now, and I don't care. Remember, it's the 1,000 miles an hour or zero. We really don't know moderation. We can get conscious of it. We can consciously make ourselves practice moderation. We have to find a way to get aware. That's why I recommend awareness alarms. Maybe you've got another way of doing it. That's fine. It's just a suggestion. I hate using buzzwords. I hate using bumper sticker slogans, but sometimes they work. And the word mindful, as buzzwordy as it may be, it works. It does. We have to get mindful in order to practice moderation. It does take a lot of effort. It gets easier. And I would even go so far as take a stab at maybe this is how an addict could actually be. I'm totally speculating here, though. I can see someone getting addicted to moderation. Oh, yeah. It would be like this. They would be like so hardcore trying to do everything in moderation that they get anal retentive about moderation to the point where it's like your addictive tendencies are showing through your gung-ho-ness about moderation. It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? But anybody that knows what I'm talking about probably like, he might be right. I don't know. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm not. Like I said, I'm speculating here. But yeah, I could totally see somebody letting their addictive traits come through about moderation, get anal retentive about moderation. And they're like, I'm the most moderation havingest person there ever was, man. Yeah. But whatever. So, but we do have to get mindful. And no, I don't like the word. I don't like using those buzzwords, but it is a good word. We have to get mindful of what we're doing. That autopilot is a killer. I mean, it's not good for anybody. Even when we are getting conscious and aware of it, we're probably still going to be on autopilot definitely more than half the time. They say most people on autopilot like 90 to 95%. I don't know how accurate that is, but I think it's pretty accurate. I think that 90% definitely. What do I mean by that? I mean that 90% of the time we are just going off of memory, off of muscle memory, off of automatic things we don't even have to think about. I mean, we have conversations with people. We have full-blown conversations. We might sit and eat a meal and have a conversation with somebody fully on autopilot. Because if we haven't really gotten aware of what we're doing, where we are, who we're with, all of those things, then you may be on autopilot. In fact, if you haven't directed your attention towards self and realized, I am here, I am now, then you may be on autopilot. But anyway, I'm not going to go off into the weeds on that. Redirecting our attention at things is exactly what we need to do. For me, it's writing and podcasting and then doing the more candid woo-woo videos on YouTube. Don't judge me. I love that stuff. You know I do. I like to read. I do a lot of things. I try not to let it go 1,000 miles an hour. But it takes some effort sometimes. It really does. I have to dial it down. But I've gotten better at it. I've definitely gotten better at it. And then, like, as far as writing is concerned, I am still writing the memoir. I have fully dedicated to getting that out in 2025. We just have to find interests and hobbies. The thing is, I know, and I'm sure you know, that once we do find something to direct our attention at, we're going to be hardcore about it. Probably too hardcore about it. Probably to the point where it's like, whoa, I need to dial it down. I need to practice some moderation, even though this is not a unhealthy habit or hobby. Nonetheless, we don't want to get burnt out on it either. You don't want to get burnt out on something that you have redirected your attention to, and then you go on autopilot and you're trying to find something else to direct your attention to, and well, that addictive part of our brain sure does love to go back to where we came from. It's like the bad relationship that ended. Of course, a relationship with a partner. Of course, there was a time when it was good. It would have never turned into something at all if there wasn't a good time for it. And yes, the biggest problem is when we get away from it, get some separation, in a lot of cases, people start thinking about the good times they had, right? They do. They think about the good times once there's some separation. And that's why it's good to have a friend remind you of how and why it ended. Like if you're thinking about calling that ex, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I am going to remind you to think about how and why it ended. Don't think about the happy times right there at the beginning. Same thing goes for addiction. Don't think about the happy times at the beginning when it was new and it was still fun. Think about how it ended. It was ugly. It was probably gross. It was a lot of things. You were probably at rock bottom financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You might have still had some family members still kind of talking to you, but they definitely were at arm's length, right? Because they were afraid you might steal something from them or hit them up for money or something. I'm not going to go down that road right now either because we talked about that in the last episode. But yes, new interests, hobbies, and skills. I think meditation is a key to a lot of this. It's a key to know yourself and to figure out who you really are, why you're here. We all have purpose. Meditation is so key. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be just sitting quietly in your chair with your hands folded in your lap, focusing on your breath. After doing that, you will go further than that. That's just beginning. But I talked about that in the last episode as well. But yes, I do mean tapping into your higher self. Yeah, I'm still going to get woo-woo. Don't worry. But yes, you do have a higher self. And am I saying that it's your the actual player outside the game playing this avatar from outside? Maybe. Doesn't really matter. What does matter is we do have purpose. We just got to find that purpose. You're not here for no good reason. You're absolutely here for a reason. Maybe your reason is to help other addicts. Maybe your reason is to raise amazing children. Maybe your reason is to, do something. Find your purpose. Get obsessed over that. And yes, I said obsessed. Maybe I shouldn't say obsessed, but I did. Because that is what addiction is. It's obsessing over something. It really is. We obsess over things. We go too hard. That's why we have a hard time committing to relationships, right? I've told the lovely Kitty this. I cannot commit to things. Well, I can. I do. But it's a big decision. Because I know that once I've committed to something, that's it. I'm all the way in. There ain't no halfway in. So I can't commit to some project. I can't commit to a relationship. I can't commit to anything unless I'm 100% sure. Because I know that once I make that commitment, that's it. And you know what else I know? You're the same. You're just like me when it comes to that kind of thing, because we obsess over things. But the good news is we can obsess over good things. We can obsess over developing a cooking skill. Yeah, some of the best addicts I've ever known were also amazing chefs. Why? Because they obsess over their skill. They perfect it. They chase it. Yes, loved one. I know that saying obsessed is not it's whatever. I say things that aren't really acceptable anyway. I don't care. If you don't want to use the word obsessed, fine. Anyway, loved ones, I'm still doing the very candid videos on YouTube, meaning they're not edited. We do have thumbnails for the videos now, though. Been doing that, so that at least that looks somewhat professional, maybe. I don't know. Still doing those, so if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, I would so appreciate it if you would do that. Also, the website is coming up, thanks to my new friend Clive, who is making things a lot easier than they were. I was having an issue with the domain name, but that's not going to be an issue, so that's good. And also, if you would, please, loved one, follow me on X, because for now, that is exactly where you will be able to find all of the things that I'm doing, be it a audio podcast episode or a YouTube video or a blog post or whatever. I like X because we can interact on the fly, and that's good. Anyway, loved ones, if you have something you would like for me to expand on, you can always use the Chat with Matt feature in the description of each episode. However, I have found I cannot reply back to those messages. Yeah, so there's that. But if you do have something you want to talk about, send me a message, but also give me a means of contacting you back, and I will. So send me a message, hey, I'd like to be a guest, or hey, I'd like for you to expand on this, or whatever the case may be. Give me an email address or whatever so that I can contact you if need be. Because that's an issue I've been having, is people will send me, hey, I want to talk about this or that or whatever. And I'm like, so I got a hold of Buzzsprout, and I'm like, why can't I reply to these messages? Oh, you can't do that. But then it's not exactly a chat feature, is it? But whatever. It's still pretty good. But, just heads up. If you send me a message on there, make sure you put a way for me to contact you back. That's all. So anyway, loved ones, that is what I got. I do love you, and I will be back directly.
There is a distance in the light.